all this computer. Welcome to Talk to Think. Today is May 29th, and this is Athena Village, and I'm Kelly Pratt. I am the founder of Athena Village, and with me I have Stephanie Foley and Aimee Zwaap. I would love for you two to first introduce yourselves briefly, and we're going to be talking about creativity today. So let's hear, Stephanie, can you give us a brief introduction of who you are and how you got here?
Well, hi, I'm Stephanie Foley, and I got here the way most of us got here, just living and loving and laughing and trying to figure out the best way to do that. And what I call the work I do as just essentially trying to master the art of living. So various concepts and ways of learning and schools of thought and ancient wisdom and current practices are all blended together, and I call myself an enchanted life guide. Because I don't resonate with the word coach. I get what a coach is, but I'm not into sports, and so I have that association. And the work I do, I feel like, is really partnering and collaborating with people on their creative cycle. And I think what a lot of people don't realize is that we are all inherently creative. People think creativity is something you either have or do not have, and I believe we all have it. It's our birthright. It's who we are. It's what it is to be human. And so that's step one, is just acknowledging that. And then from there, whole worlds emerge.
Exactly. And this must be why you and I sort of clicked immediately, because as a trained coach, I've never really resonated with that word. Also not a sports person, but I understand the idea of sports coaches typically use the motivation, which is a pushing energy, and I believe in inspiration, which is a pulling and attracting energy. And I call what I do as a coach creative rhythm coaching, because we all have our own rhythm and we all need to honor that rhythm. But we first have to identify it. So I totally believe that. We're in the middle kind of the pandemic right now. Talk about creativity. The scientists who are working on solutions and a way to manage the pandemic are creative. I mean, can you think of anything more creative than trying to figure out how to manage that? So yes, everyone is creative.
Exactly. This COVID-19 is a great example of how much we have to innovate and be creative. But before we get down on that tangent, I want to give you a chance to let Aimee introduce herself.
So Aimee, let's hear, you and Stephanie have found some ways that there's a big Venn diagram and you guys have a big overlap, don't you?
Yes, we do. So I've worn many hats, but my most recent has been teaching social painting classes, where I teach people how to paint on vinyl records, upcycled vinyl records. And part of my classes morphed into teaching kids fairy camps over the summer, where I have them come to my property and we build fairy houses. And then we did it for adults, because why are all the kids having all the fun?
Exactly.
And adults need to gift themselves that time of enchantment as well. And then Stephanie and I met through an online course, and I opened up my property to potentially host a retreat, and Stephanie joined as like, let's plan it together. And this started our friendship. So about a year and a few months ago, we started working on retreats, and that turned into other things that we sparked on. But our common theme was really enchantment and creativity, and how do we uplift people and feed that well of creativity within them and get people unblocked and moving again. And so, yeah, and that's really how we came together. And now that's sort of my main focus, is moving more into an online. Obviously my classes aren't happening right now,
right.
but my interests are moving more towards adults and weaving enchantment back into adults' lives as well.
That's very interesting. And the idea that I recently interviewed my mom for Mother's Day in the project I did, the Get Your Groove Back project, which is one of the, I think that maybe is what, through Ellie
That's how I
Trier.
found you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And when I asked her what Get Your Groove Back means to her, she's 84, she said it means, to her, it meant getting in touch with your childlike ideas. And there was a meditation that was done at a spiritual center I go to, and he asked us to have to get in touch with our child or something like that. And I didn't have, he wanted us to talk to our children, our young selves. My young self, I didn't have to talk to her. My young self had message for me. She's like, play more, come on, have more fun, you know, and we hear often that we need to tell our young selves to be, it's like, no, my young self is going, come on, quit being so dang serious, allow the creativity. So anyway, I love what you're doing. Painting, I'm really curious about this painting on vinyl. That's something you could teach online, right?
Yeah, it is something that we could teach online. Yep.
Well, and so the quintessential book on creativity, at least that's what a lot of people think. And I'm going to be, when we open this up for conversation, it'll be interesting to hear what a lot of the other folks on the call think too. I've gone through The Artist's Way several times. I've started it and stopped and drifted off several times. I had created an online course in the village, but I just didn't have the bandwidth to do it. And I had reached out to a couple of people and said, I think the world needs this right now. I think the world needs a place for people to come together and explore their creativity, but it's not for me to do at the moment. And then you guys popped in. And I just said, hey, would you ever be interested in doing this? And bam, you said yes. So what I want to hear from you is what attracted you to say, why did you say yes? And what do you think, just tell us about your take on it and what you intend to have happen over those next 12 weeks. And what is The Artist's Way?
Wow, those are all really great questions.
No, take them in any order you feel like.
I will jump in and start, and feel free to interject as we go, Aimee, and I'll be sure to make sure to call you out at the end if you don't interject. So first, I just want to point out that The Artist's Way is a course written, it's a book and a course. It's a 12-week course written in the form of a book, and each chapter is a week. And it was written in the 90s by a woman named Julia Cameron, who was very dedicated to recovery. And if you think about my perspective anyway, in the 90s, we as a humanity were evolving consciously from a place in the 80s where we were very materialistic into the 90s where we were doing a little more reflection and a lot of recovery. And so a little bit of it almost reflects some Alcoholics Anonymous. Not that you have to be an alcoholic to be creative. She goes into that a great deal. We have these misconceptions about how the artist lifestyle is one of pain. And that is something I believe that has changed as we have evolved. We're in a different place in 2020, and I don't think the majority of artists are buying into that archetype of pain anymore. It's still happening for some, obviously, but it's not going to be the majority. So I feel like the work is very relevant, but I also think it's time to evolve it. And so we are going to be doing it the Enchanted edition. And what that means to us is that in some of those pieces where Julia's original work really stems from deficiency motives, where you feel deficient in some area and you want to overcome that or compensate or fix, we're really going to be approaching it from a place of growth motive, where you're already whole, even if you would like to see your evolution continue in a different way. But let's grow into that. If there are deep-seated issues that still feel like deficiencies, then I feel like it's really appropriate as you go through some of this creative work to engage other professionals as needed. Like, this is a holistic kind of lifestyle that you're creating for yourself. But step one is taking responsibility for it yourself. being your own advocate for, I get to live a creative life, and making that choice. And so we're gonna start from there and decide that if you are willing to make the choice to live a creative life, then most of what you're going to be working through is growth motives. And so to do that piece of the work is really about creating a safe space to grow, just like a plant cycle. Imagine a seed in the ground, and breaking open that shell of that seed is painful and scary, and the sprouts start to come. The creative cycle and the life cycle very much follow that same cycle and pattern. And so the enchantment piece is the magic of how does it all happen, right? And we touched on a little bit about our inner child, our inner artist, and Aimee and I like to call that our wildling. And so to bring the wildling out to play is going to be our version. We'll definitely stick with Julia Cameron's tools and processes and language, because this is, so far out there in the world, probably the most comprehensive course that exists. And Julia did this in person with lots of human beings before she ever wrote the book. So it's a tried and true methodology that works. So we're not gonna change that part of it. It's gonna make it a little bit more enchanted. This works so well, in fact, that it's become part of who I am. I did this 25 years ago when it first came out, and realized in the most recent reread that some of my language that I used in my everyday life, my husband and I will go for our walk to the river. Oh, we got to go fill the well. Well, just last night, I'm like, oh, I got that from Julia.
Yeah, exactly. Isn't
like, I've just owned it. So anytime I steal her words, it's not just steal her words. I will always give her credit. But I'm sure that's what she wants for all of us, is just to be able to embrace these tools for the art of living. And on that note, I'll turn it over to Aimee.
Yeah, so I definitely defer to Stephanie as the expert on this book. And when she said she was going to lead the course and asked me if I wanted to help, I said, yes, hell yes. But full disclosure, I have not actually finished the course.
Good.
I'm going to be here as that perspective of those of you who started it and did not get through. I think I got about halfway, started it once more, didn't, get through. I've now read through it all, or listen to it on Audible. But I'm excited to go through it with everyone.
Perfect.
And yeah, so I think,
that's even better, I think.
Yeah, so we've got both perspectives here.
Yeah. You will find, I've led this, I've led the course several times, and I've also led the Artist Way at Work, which is a different perspective on this, because of what you talked about in the beginning, Stephanie, that whole who's creative. I've been told many times, don't use the word creative when you're trying to market your business. I'm like, yeah, well, get over it, because everyone is creative. The people working on the COVID virus, they're creative because they have to think differently. So I think we have to allow ourselves, Catherine just posted in there, so that, there's this fear of failing. Julia addresses that. We address that in terms of, if you have to work towards something, you have to be willing to try and fail. What is it Yoda says? Do or do not, there is no try. We have to try, because if you don't try, you don't know if it doesn't work. So that's what it's going to be really fun to see, how people identify those blocks. I posted one of my inner critics, which is one of the things that Julia lets us explore, is Auntie M out of The Wizard of Oz. She's like, for years I've been wanting to tell you what I think of you, but now I can't say it. And she helps us to identify those little inner critics and all those little things in a really fun way. And I can't wait to see your twist on some of those things. It's going to be very fun.
Oh, you're going to love. Aimee put together some really great stuff on that critic already. You're going to love it.
I can't wait. I'm going to go through it again. I've gone through this a bunch of times, but it's so easy to get away from it and to let the world, especially now, the world take you into seriousness. And my family motto is frivolum est bonus, which is Latin for silly is good.
I like it.
And I need to get back to that. I need to get back to that place where we are allowing ourselves to, burst into song while walking with our masks on down the, the aisles at Target, when a fun
I love
song,
that.
I know, but I'm not there right now. And so we need to get to that point and this process, and it is based on 12 steps because she went through the program, and it's a 12-week process intentionally. It's long, but it's good. And so talk a little bit about, Julie Cameron is very specific about the tools that you do not get to say, yeah, I don't want to do those. Some of the activities she allows you to be flexible on, but what about the 2 tools that she says, nope, non-negotiable? Can you say a little bit about those 2? The morning
Sure, I would
pages
agree
and the
that
artist date.
I'd agree that they're non-negotiable. I do think that we can open our minds a little bit about what they mean.
Mm-hmm.
The artist date, I refer to in my own personal life as a wander date, because for me it's about wandering and wondering. That's what feeds that's what feeds my well, or fills my well, or gives me the images I need. If we read through to the purpose and the objective of her tools, then we can tell for ourselves whether or not what we're doing is a good fit. So for the artist dates, the reason that a wander or a wonder date works for me, it's partially because of my age. I'm going to turn 49 this fall, and so I've already tried a lot of art. So when I did the course for the first time in my 20s, and I went through and did exploratory art things on artist dates, that was all brand new to me. Now, where I'm at the phase and stage of my life, to go for a wander in the woods is what feeds me in the way that painting and sculpting and trying new art forms used to feed me in the past. Or, one of the examples she says is maybe you go to an art supply store and allow the little kid inside of you to go, and choose these things. And now I find it's more important for me to go for a walk and bring out my inner 3-year-old and go ahead and dawdle and be really slow and stop and look at every little shiny thing and, oh, wow, isn't that cool? But it's going to be different for different people. And I feel like we want to explore our hearts and find out what is the purpose of the artist state, what's it trying to accomplish? And then that will help you decide whether or not what you're planning for yourself works. So that's one of the basic tools. The other basic tool is the morning pages. And I think I've already posted in the discussion group that I called them daily pages when I did them, because it just wasn't able to always commit to doing them first thing in the morning. And so for me, I felt comfortable that as long as I did them every day. I'm going to go a little tiny step further with the Enchanted Guide for people who have, I think for anyone who's already done the course, and if they've already done morning pages, then they might consider some other options, and I'll get into that in a minute. But for someone who's never done the course and really is at more of a recovery level of emptying your mind, that daily page is an exercise in getting to know yourself and building trust with yourself, and understanding what your blocks are and allowing the muse to come through. And so when we keep in mind that those are the objectives, daily writing is both the discipline, the space, the commitment, the proof to yourself that you can trust yourself, and the most engaging somatic way, because it's physical with your mind, so mind, body, to make that happen. So that is going to be my recommendation for 99% of participants.
Right.
However,
I'll chat.
there are going to be those who I do think could explore some other options, like art journaling. If you did your 3 pages of art journaling, and we can get into what that is later, or painting or something else that is an expressive thing, the key is that it needs to be a commitment, it needs to be consistent, and you need to remember what the objectives are. Building trust with yourself, and that's, your wildling, your inner artist, the entire committee in your head, because if you actually kind of get into it, we are multiples.
Yes.
Right? So it's building trust with that committee in your head that you're going to show up for yourself every single day. Right. And then making sure that the activity you're doing has some sort of meditative quality that will accomplish 2 things. One, it will unblock places that are blocked. That might be via showing you things that you have yet to heal or explore or investigate. or it may be opening a channel to a muse who's trying to come through to you to share, here's this great idea. And we'll get into defining muse, whether that's your higher self or your God or your whatever, but it's coming, it's the inspiration. It's just what you said, Kelly. It's coming in and expressing. It's
Aimee, do you have any, since you've never done this before, do you have any comments about these two basic tools?
Well, for one, I am entering a new phase of my life. I just had a baby in February, and so she's 4 months. And so I'm going through a whole redefinition of my creative self right now and what that means, and understanding it and coming to terms with it with my time and how I can, you know, express myself throughout the day. And so, and I think one of the blocks for the course was getting overwhelmed of not finishing everything and wanting to go through, you know, and so obviously, some of the prompts, because she has so many, you might not get to all of them, but for the main two, you know, and even with this 30 minutes, like that's a precious amount of time. And I don't even, some days it's like, where is this 30 minutes? And so to do morning pages, and if that's how long it takes, that's been about how long it's been going for me. And so I've been doing it, you know, I started doing it again. And then I had a conversation with Stephanie about how could I rework this? You know, how could I get the essence of the morning pages, but in a different way that works with my new lifestyle of needing to like walk a baby or just not being able to write like that. And so just today I tried for 30 minutes. I downloaded a voice recorder and I did my brain dump, you know, free flowing thoughts for 30 minutes, just talking. And it seemed like a long time, but it was, which is the essence of the morning page, to go just a little bit longer than feels comfortable to see if we can break through something. And so while I was walking her to sleep up and down the road in the stroller, I just spewed my stream of consciousness into my voice recorder. And I'm still going to probably do a combination of morning pages written when I can. But just to do that is just a way for me to not feel like, I didn't do them today and get down on myself. And it's like, no, I can still do that because there's no excuse for that. Like, because I definitely have that.
That is brilliant, Aimee. I love that.
And I would also love to explore the artist pages too, of taking 30 minutes of maybe even while I'm voice recording my thoughts, just getting that out, free flowing paint on paper, just with mood, emotion, what needs to come out, and see how. I've never really done that before, so I'm excited to see, you know, what that might.
I think that's brilliant. And you know, you do think, and then we're gonna open this up here in a minute. You do think about the technology changes since in 25 years, because I'm a talk to think. This is called talk to think. So I'm a talk to think person. And I'm thinking, oh, that's brilliant. I could just transcribe it and then I'd have what I did, you know, because I'm not very good. And I get really antsy, especially when I try and do it in the morning. I'm best in the morning getting work done. And so trying to make myself sit there and write this. Plus the other thing is she wants us to like dump negative stuff. I learned long ago not to write down negative stuff. I don't like writing down negative stuff. And so I have a way of turning that around. Anyway, so there's all sorts of discussions about morning pages and making it work for you. So it is one thing to say about you guys as guides it'll be so much fun not to be the guide, so I can't wait. You don't teach the artist way. Right. You guide people in the artist way. So one of the things that Julia Cameron is very clear about, at the end of the book, she says, if you want to lead a group, you'll lead the creative cluster, but you will be a guide. And she asks that everyone who does this participates in the group. And so I'm guessing you guys will also be participating. And it's exciting for us to be able to do this together. And I can't wait to see what you're creating, Aimee, as the artist behind some of the wonderful graphics I've been seeing that you're creating. And just the idea of the enchanted spin. Can you tell us just briefly, because then we're going to turn the recording off and open it up to everyone so we can have a conversation about this, how this is going to go? So it's the 29th of May, and this starts when, and how is the process going to work throughout the summer?
It goes from June 1st to August 29th. And so that's begins on a Monday. I just thought June 1st, the beginning of the month. But the first Zoom call check-in will take place on that Saturday, June 6th. And those events will be in the Athena Village event space. So you can see them and find the Zoom links and all of that. So during that first week, from between June 1st and June 6th, people will be reading that introductory material. And then after the first Saturday call on June 6th, the following week, June 7th and beyond, they'll start into chapter 1 and do week 1. So then it will be a total of 13 weeks.
Okay.
On Monday, June 1st, there'll be a kind of a soft kickoff as a live chat in the classroom. So if you are in the Athena Village on Monday, afternoon, evening, depending on your time zone, I'm going to have the chat space open, be there to answer questions, getting to know you. That's the big classroom chat that you'll find on the lower left-hand side of the space once you're in there.
Cool. Fun. All right. I am going to stop any last words, Aimee, before I stop the recording?
Oh, I'm just very excited to get to know everyone.
Okay. And before I stop, this is the Athena Village is free to join. You do have to be a member of Athena Village in order to participate in the Artist's Way, but we would like to invite anyone to do that. I will, I put the link over here in the chat, so I'll make sure that that is available for people. So I'm going to stop the recording now, and then we will have a conversation with all of our guests.